G'day and welcome back to the channel, where today we are driving a Mk7 Golf GTI with a manual. I know we had a Golf on the channel only a couple of videos ago, but that is just the timing of things. But yeah, let's just get stuck straight into it. The Mk7 came out in, well, at least in Australia, in early 2013. For the 2017 model year, it was facelifted with new headlights with LED running lights and xenon main beams, as well as a slightly bigger infotainment system. That's this particular model. Build quality is superb. Everything feels very premium and looks very good too. The steering wheel, really nice to hold, feels very well made, and it's got these nice little metallic inserts. It's got analog gauges, which is also quite desirable considering the Mark 7.5 or 7.5, depending how you want to call it, went without analog gauges, and I much prefer them, to be honest. I don't really like digital gauge clusters that pretty much every modern car has now. I think analog gauges are much nicer on the eyes. The touchscreen, yeah, it's there. I don't really know the size of it. I don't really care, to be honest. I don't care about infotainment. I like driving cars and enjoying them on the road, but it works well enough. It's responsive. It's got GPS, Bluetooth, obviously. It's got everything that you need. The adaptive driving modes are controlled via the touchscreen, which I don't really like. I find playing around with touchscreens when you're driving very difficult and quite distracting. I wish there was a mechanical button. Gear lever, it is a golf ball, because it's a Golf, I guess. It's got this red stitching, so quite nice attention to detail, and also this really nice metallic sleeve, I suppose it's called. I like the attention to detail on the gear lever. It's very German, and I quite like that. The seats have nice stitching on them as well, and quite a nice pattern. They're comfortable. They're not the softest seats in the world, but you can do pretty big hours in this car and not particularly worry about getting tired or sore, and the bolstering holds you in pretty well. I know this is a matter of opinion, but I don't really like the Mark 8 interior. I much prefer this. You've got actual buttons for things rather than two big screens. It's just a much nicer place to be. So I think, in my opinion at least, this is peak Golf interior. This car also has a little aftermarket LCD readout just above the driver's aircon vent. It shows you things like battery voltage and speed and exhaust gas temperature and inlet air temperature and all that sort of stuff. So if you're really bored on a long drive, you can just play around with that, I suppose. Alright, that's enough talking. Let's go for a drive. Now let's talk drive modes. This car has three. It's got Comfort, Normal and Sport. At the moment we're in Comfort, and it is very, very easy to drive. The suspension in Comfort mode is very soft, very compliant, and it gives you a bit of added flexibility that the Mark 5 and 6 never gave you. Not that there was anything wrong with the way those cars were damped, but this is definitely more comfortable. I was coming up here in Comfort mode, going around a couple corners, and even in Comfort mode it still corners very well. There's not any noticeable extra body roll. Everything still is kept really in check. It doesn't become a undersprung mess in Comfort mode at all. This road that we're on now is pretty undulated, and there's just absolutely no dramas. And that's always been the point of a Golf, isn't it? Even the GTI model, to be very easy to just waft along. Driving position's good, really nice visibility out the front of the car and over the bonnet. Gear change action, excellent, nice and notchy. Throw is, it's not particularly short, but at the same time it's definitely not a long throw. And the actual gear lever feels very well made as well, like I said earlier. Engine wise, this is the EA888 engine, so it's a 2-litre turbo. Power in the Mark 7 was up to 217, just under 220 horsepower, and about 350 newton meters of torque. Alright, so I've put the car into normal mode now that we're going a little bit quicker. I've gotten it out of Comfort. Steering. Okay, well, it's an electric rack, so it doesn't have any feel, and you do feel a little bit isolated from the experience, but it's got very keen turn in, and it's very accurate. You can really put the car exactly where you want to. I'd much rather leave the steering in normal rather than sport. I'm not a fan of steering racks that are overly heavy without a lot of feel. I think it just feels too artificial, and I think this car is kind of testament to that. In the heaviest setting, the weight just doesn't match the feel, so it may as well just be lighter. So I run the steering in normal, which you can do in individual mode as well. You can adjust everything independently if you choose to. Body roll is beautifully managed. The damping is good, absorbs bumps well, but I find in sport mode it can get a little bit overdamped for Australian roads at least. I'd much rather just leave it in normal, because you get a little bit of suspension travel. And let's face it, on a twisty bit of road, especially if it's bumpy, you need the suspension travel. You don't want a car jumping and hopping around everywhere. Not saying that it's anywhere near that bad, but normal mode is the perfect medium between the two, the minimum and the maximum damping settings. And you're really not trading much. It's a Golf, it isn't a track car. You're not going to notice any increased body roll or anything like that. Chassis feel, it's an evolution from the Mark V really. It doesn't feel quite as chuckable and as quite as go-kart like, but it still corners very neutrally. It feels safe as long as you're not trying to do anything completely stupid. It feels like the car will look after you. It doesn't want to understeer. It doesn't really want to oversteer. It will if you provoke it. You have to work a little bit harder at provoking it than you did in the Mark V, or especially, you know, hot hatches from the 90s like old Peugeots and whatnot. But its whole demeanour feels very neat and clean in the way it goes down a twisty bit of road. Brakes, the rotor sizes are 317mm on the front and 270 on the rear. The pedal weighting's nice, the bite's good. Not really much else to talk about with them. They're not full of feel, but they're effective. There's normally some interesting cars up here, but today there's an M135i, but other than that, just bloody SUVs, which is the way the world's going, sadly. Alright, so like I said before, the Mark 7 in stock form has about 220 horsepower. Not this one. This has a stage 1 tune done by a company called Racing Line. So it makes about 312 horsepower and 430-ish newton meters of torque. In original form, you definitely couldn't call it slow. It would be a bit out of touch calling it underpowered, but it never felt particularly urgent, and it always felt as if there was more there. So we're in a 100 section bit of road now. So let's just second gear, accelerate. Yeah, the stock Mark 7 doesn't do that. And because it's purely a software tune, you do need to upgrade the clutch, admittedly, if it's a manual. You don't need to go down the route of putting a stupid exhaust on it that does the pops and crackles, and I cannot tell you how much I hate that. You don't have to do anything like that though. You're unlocking what was already there. All it is just an ECU flash. And you get this beautiful linear power delivery. There's a lot of torque. I can't quite remember where the 430 newton meters starts coming in. I'll have to check, see if there's a dyno sheet available for one of these. But the power is so linear, and it goes all the way to the red line. And it does seriously change the way this car feels on an acceleration standpoint. So if you are looking at buying a Mark 7, or you already have one, get a stage 1 tune. You will not regret it. And it doesn't impact fuel economy. You can still get 6.5 litres per 100 k's, depending how you drive it, obviously. If you drive it like that all the time, you won't. But it still can be just as usable as it was before. And I know what you're probably thinking. This isn't the Club Sport nor the TCR, so it doesn't have the limited slip diff. But believe it or not, it doesn't come at the cost that you think it would with traction. First gear is nearly impossible to get the power down, obviously. But second gear onwards is fine. In a straight line, there's absolutely no torque steer. It will spin up an inside wheel coming out of a corner, so you have to be selective with when and where you apply the throttle and how much. You can't just mash your foot as soon as you apex a corner. You have to roll onto the throttle a little bit. Case in point about the power delivery. Here we are, left-hand corner. I'm going to keep one end on the wheel and just flat to the floor on exit. See? Yeah, it didn't really get the power down, but at the same time, there was no fight through the steering. It didn't try to send me off the edge. Still felt completely safe. So the front axle geometry is superb, in my opinion. That even with an open diff, 312 odd horsepower is still pretty manageable. Yeah, you do need a limited slip diff though, especially for first gear if you really want to get power down all the time. So you do need to buy a Club Sport or a TCR in the 7.5 variant, or get a Golf R. You got no issues there at all with all-wheel drive. Now, something that everyone always says in the motoring world about Golf GTIs is that they're not fun, they're dull, they're boring, they don't have character, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, you know, I can kind of see the point. It certainly doesn't have a lot of feel, and you do feel a little bit isolated from the experience in a way that you just don't get in older cars from the 90s and 2000s. It doesn't encourage sort of fun driving quite the way older cars do, which is why I like older cars so much. But when you do start leaning into it, you do settle into its feel. So yeah, it's not a particularly feelsome car, but what it is effective. It does everything you want it to well. It stops well, it turns into corners keenly, it feels safe, it feels on your side, it gets the power to the ground fine, even with a tune. It's a car that is very hard to fault. It's not a car that you ever feels let you down in any way. And at the end of the day, other options exist. Like I've driven a Megane RS 265, for example, before the channel. And that, yeah, felt a little bit more alert. The chassis was a bit more poised. The steering was a little bit nicer. Definitely felt like a bit more of a talented car dynamically. But as far as build quality and ride comfort and all-rounders goes, this is miles ahead. Yeah, I'm sure the FK8 Type R would be absolutely phenomenal, but that is a $50,000 car still, you know, even 7-8 years later. These on the market are only about 25 grand. I reserve judgment on the Mark 8 on the basis I've never driven it, but they're a $51,000 car by the time you have them on the road. I mean, this was only 41 back in 2017. I know you've got inflation, but still, it's a big difference. And I'm sure it's a better car on the basis it's had chassis and mechanical revisions over this one, but I think value for money, this car seriously delivers. Volkswagen went out to make a car that is comfortable, easy to use, beautifully made, and still offers a great drive when you're wanting to get up it. It's still exploitable at the end of the day. It's a hot hatch. This is a car that has superb road manners in all facets of driving, and an all-roundedness that, in my opinion, no other manufacturer has achieved in the hot hatch sector quite as well. So if that's what you want in a car, then look no further. Anyway, I think that summarizes the Golf perfectly. I don't really think there's anything left to say now, so I'm going to stop filming. But if you enjoyed today's video, please consider subscribing. All you got to do is just hit a button, that's it, and that really helps me grow this channel and hopefully find more interesting cars to drive. There should be another couple of videos coming soon, all being well, but please subscribe and you can feel better knowing that you supported a small YouTuber. Cheers guys, thanks for tuning in, and see you on the next one.